All right, guys, welcome back. Tonight, we're going to go over a few more things with the Ortur Laser Master 3. I've kind of made it a little more practical. I got some jigs built for it. Got the cutting platform stabilized so that it doesn't move. I'm just going to kind of walk you around the machine, show you what it looks like now, what its capabilities are, and we're going to do a little bit of burning. I'm going to do a few drop tests and cut pass tests and that type of thing. Now that I've had a chance to get used to it, to try to find out any of the things that I like or don't like about it, we're going to kind of show you what this thing is capable of. So stick around for a few minutes and we're going to get to it. All right, guys, there she is. Got it all fixed up the way I like it. Everything is stable, interconnected. I got this little cutting tray is jigged in there so that it can't move. The only thing that I haven't worked through, and I decided to do a workaround instead of a work through, is if you're not cutting, if you're wanting to do stuff with a jig, it's this little edge here kind of gets in the way. I was going to rotate the panel this way, but in doing so, it just doesn't look right in the workspace because this machine is longer this way than it is wide, and the writing kind of is here. So it's a little bit of an issue when it comes to working with the jig panels and stuff, because using this in conjunction with my jig, it's got that extra lip, and to work around it, you could cut, raise it up a little more, cut some spacers to put under this piece here, just basically double cut this piece, put 2 layers of that, because I'll use the 4.7 millimeter plywood for that little jig to hold the cutting surface in place, or you could just swap it out. That's probably what I'll end up doing when I go from cutting over to engraving with this machine, which primarily I'm going to be doing a lot of engraving with it. It does cut, it cuts well so far, but I've got other machines that'll do it a little faster. So this thing will actually lift out of my design here and allow you to put a jig panel in there, but you have to lift that out first. So that's a little bit of a hassle, and then you've got a little bit of a space difference here, which could be overcome relatively easy simply by using another piece of the plywood that's the same thickness as what you use there, and putting it under here as kind of a spoil board in case you did accidentally go through and you wouldn't hit your table or whatnot. And that makes the jig set flat. So it's kind of a compromise. If this thing was as big as the footprint of the machine, it would eliminate this problem, but unfortunately it's not. So to use my jigs, I'm just gonna have to pull that guy out. I did make it to where it is relatively easy to put it back in and out. It's simply notched the width of this little plate, and you get it in there, and once you get it lined up right, it'll fall in place, and it doesn't allow it to move a whole lot. So that was my design idea. Spent a little time in research and development trying to get all the bugs worked out of it and get it to fit like I wanted it to. But I've got it now to where it fits pretty well. It doesn't move around. It keeps it centered in the workspace. It's not quite large enough to encompass the entire work area for this machine. So since the machine kind of homes this way, I have went and made it to where on the top side, the laser stays just inside this little piece of steel here, or piece of steel, aluminum, whatever that is. But on the bottom side of the workspace, it does overlap the cutting panel. So they just didn't quite make it as big as this machine is, and so there's nothing I can do about that. So I just kind of positioned it towards the top. Since home on this machine is in the bottom, I figured I'd give that a little bit of extra room up to the top and try to just get it as high as I could. So I've got that set up, guys, and I'm a lot more comfortable with using the machine and running the machine once I get the machine set up the way I like them. So what I'm gonna do tonight is we're gonna go through, and these are some, these are some trial and error pieces of material, guys. These jigs don't just magically make themselves. There's a lot of trial and error goes into them. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to take these two pieces right here, and I'm going to make myself a little bit of a spacer for the material. And we're going to take, and this is a decent piece of wood. There's a knot right here, so in all fairness to the Ortur, I'm going to stay away from that little strip of knot right there. So I'm going to lay this guy with the knot on the right side there. I'm going to lay it right there and set this guy up to do a little cutting and do a few drops and see how well it drops. The focus on this machine, it's got a little, it's kind of similar to some of the other machines. You just got to loosen that nut, and then you let that little foot down, lower it until it touches the material. This material has a little bit of a spring to it, so I'm not going to bear down too much on the material when I tighten it back. And then just flip that little leg back up. Once I rehome the machine, and watch this, guys, no USB cable. Let me make sure y'all can see the entire machine here. All right, there we are. Got a good view of the machine now, so that you can see this. There is no USB connection. I'll be doing this completely wireless from over here across the room. So I'm gonna be off camera a lot. Sorry to disappoint, but that's just what I need to do right now. So give me just a second. I've got to save this job that I was doing on my other machine, which is that panel there. I'll save that right quick. I use my other machine because it's a little faster at cutting. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. I am going to throw just a line in the work area to try to show you how close to being lined up I got the jig built out. So let me see if I can, wait a minute. Let me reconnect the machine. All right, it's homing. It does this really, really slow home on connection. All right, so now I'm just gonna frame this little shape. Basically what I did is I did a black box that almost encompasses the entire workspace of this machine. And I'm gonna frame it out and show you. It's a little spillover on the bottom, little on the outside edges, because the platform lacks just a little bit of being as big as the workspace. So, but my OCD required me to try to center it, so that's what I did. But all in all, I've got the majority of the workspace in there. One thing about it is if you should be able to stay inside the work area relatively easy. I'm going to put a little small circle in the middle of the workspace. I'm going to mark that 25 millimeters by 25 millimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and circle frame that guy up and see where that's going to fall. This thing is fast, guys, if y'all haven't figured it out yet. All right, so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to run this. And I'm kind of cheating here because I know what it's going to do. I've been using this machine for 2 or 3 days now. I'm going to run this at 5 millimeters per second for 2 passes at 100% output. And I expect it to drop. So here we go. And this is no air assist right now. I'll turn it on in just a second, but I want to show you with no air assist. This is what it does. It actually does a really nice, clean cut too, even without the air assist. The air assist is a bonus though, guys. All right, so there's the cut without air assist. All right, you can see it's nice and clean, real tiny mark. Got a little bit of that knotty wood right there kind of got me, just a little bit. So I'm gonna slide it over a little more, try to get away from that knot. We'll reframe this and try it again. Up too far over with my, let me get a smaller piece of wood, guys, and get away from that knot. All right, I got no knots on this piece. All right, so I'm gonna run that exact same cut on this piece since it doesn't have any knots in it. All right, as you can see, the piece kind of fell in the hole a little bit. It didn't fall completely out, but it's a really tight cut. So I'm just gonna show you both sides before I knock it out. And you can see it's lifted up there. Oh, there it went. So 2 passes without the knots and stuff. This is 4.5 millimeter Luan, and you do get knots and imperfections in the wood. So that's an issue, but this was a clean, nice clean piece. So I'm gonna run this up here one more time. And I'm gonna slow it way down, but I'm gonna turn the air assist on because I don't wanna start a fire. And this is the air assist pump that they sent me with the machine. And I wanna slow this thing way down. I don't normally do this, but I wanna show you what it's capable of. This is at 3 millimeters per second at 100% output. I'm gonna go ahead and frame first. And this thing does not waste any time getting to where it's going either, by the way, guys. All right, here we go. 3 millimeters per second at 100% output. 4.5 millimeter Luan. And for those of you that, you use millimeters per second, it's a preference thing, guys. If you don't know how fast 3 millimeters per second is, just multiply it by 60, and there you go. 3 millimeters per second, and just watch this, guys. There you go. So a 1 pass cut with the air assist. Not a lot of charring. I mean, there is some, you can see there's some on there, but it drops smooth. Now, I want to show you guys where this thing really, to me, surprises me at. But that is, like I said, the white space can is set to 310 on that. And it's smooth, it's not herky-jerky or anything like that. The one thing I have noticed with this machine is the engraving is really dark for those high speeds compared to what you see a lot of times. I ran the exact same settings on a couple of other machines doing some of my projects in the past few days. And this one seems to do a little darker engrave on, even on the same type of material. The engraves seem to be a little darker. So there's the text, and even at those speeds, guys, I don't know if you can, how well you can see that, but that's the really smooth edges, no obvious signs of lines sticking out or anything like that, like you would think you would see. After battling with this thing for a little while, I think I have learned something about this machine. Earlier, I was having a little bit of a problem with it, you know, sitting level on the table. And so I kind of lifted it up while it was powered on, moved it around, and then set it back down. And immediately following that, it started throwing the gyroscope error on it, saying that it had been moved. Now, it did it several times. You can see I had 1 failed burn, 2 failed burns, 3, 4. It would get about halfway through it and it would error out every time. Same warning. I thought it was because I had turned the white space scan so high, which I run it that way for 2 days and had no issues. So it was driving me nuts trying to figure out what it was. So word of advice, if you get one of these guys, because I think I figured out what caused it. Do not pick this machine up and move it while it's powered on unless you power it back down and then power it back up. The only thing I can come up with, guys, is that the gyroscope in this thing detected the movement when I picked it up and moved it around, and for some reason it got hung up and just kept throwing that error. I ran this thing for the past 2 or 3 days Really, really fast white scan. I have run it on the same exact table. The only thing that I had changed was that I put my jig kit on there, which I checked, and it is not affecting the stability of the machine. So it had me concerned. I thought I had a problem, but I think, and I draw this back from my drone time and my drone days, and I think when I picked it up and moved it like I did, I think I caused the gyroscope a little issue, and I'm gonna step out on a limb and say I probably caused that error. So I just ran 2 burns successfully without having that error after I rebooted the machine. And I'm just letting it run random burns now just to see if it'll do it again, because it did it consistently. And I know I just did that one on top of another burn, but right now I turned the white space scan back up to 310 just to see if it throws that error. But I'm pretty sure it was because I lifted the machine while it was powered up. So if you have an Ortur Laser Master 3, if this experiment is successful, then I'm going to go with me lifting the machine and moving it while it was powered on caused the problem. So don't do that. If you do have to lift the machine, power it down, move it, set it back down, and then power it back up. Because apparently that sensor does not like to be moved at all. But I ran it, like I said, I've run it for 2 or 3 days at the same exact settings I was using today with no problems. And then I got to realizing that it was working fine up until I lifted the machine earlier while it was powered on. So that's the only thing that I did differently than I did last night. So I am fairly certain that was what was caused it. But the engraving ability of this thing is it's pretty nice. I'm really liking the speed. That code, that error had me a little perturbed for a minute there. But so far, since I rebooted the machine entirely, it hasn't done it. I was successfully carved my little camper there. I did this little Christmas decoration, and now it's doing another one. And I'm probably gonna run one more just to, you know, for science. So far, so good. The reboot of the machine seems to have corrected the issue that I was having. So I am going to go with the fact that it was in fact my lifting of the machine while it was powered up that caused the issue. And I've never had a machine that had gyros in it that I moved around. So that's probably not something I would recommend doing while the machine's powered up. You're going to want to make sure you power that thing down before you move it, because obviously it doesn't like it when it is moved while the power is on it. And it'll cause that alarm to continually go off and be really annoying. But I turned the speed down a little bit on the burn. I turned it down to like 80 because this material is not quite getting as dark as some of my plywood does. So I turned the movement speed down ever so slightly to 80%. White space scan is at 310. So it's jumping from place to place fairly quick there. All right, guys, it's been a few more minutes. I finished the other burn, and I'm working on one more now. I'm about to run out of space on this piece of wood. I have concluded that in fact was the problem with the gyroscope. Is under no circumstances would I lift or move one of these machines with it powered up. Just go ahead and mark that down. Do not do that, because if you forget to power it off and power it back on, it will cause that issue. I'm going to go ahead and call that issue corrected because it has not had any problems. Even running at 310 on the white space scan, it is still performing as it should. It's doing a good job. It's moving plenty fast. This little Merry Christmas burn right here, as you can see, it's even with white space scan at 310, it's still doing a really good job. One thing that I haven't done tonight and I want to do, and some of those clips where I had the little alarm, I'll try to throw those in there for you, but the one thing I haven't done tonight that I want to do is I want to try to experiment with a photo on this machine, but I don't want to do a real big one because it'll take too long and it's getting late. But I do want to do black and white photo real quick. So I'm gonna take this piece of wood out, set it up, and show you what it'll do on that once this one finishes. But here's the engraving I'm getting out of it, and that's with the white space scan turned up to 310. These are the ones where I had lifted the machine and it would get halfway through and it throw that error. But once I realized that I was the cause of the problem, I have burned that one, those two, and this one, and no more issues. So don't lift your machine, guys. Right, I've got a older image that I've uploaded, and I modified it slightly, just a little quick Photoshop editing, nothing finalized, but I'm gonna go ahead and burn that. I've set the LPI up kind of high just to see how it turns out, and I'm gonna see how much of a shading difference I can get out of this. I did realize about halfway through that I ran the LPI up, but I didn't back the power down. So straight off of the machine, it kind of overcooked it just a little. So let me get the air hose, a hold to it, and hit it with a little sandpaper, and see if I can salvage that, because it went way deeper than I'd anticipated it going. Which, now this is just plywood too. This isn't any kind of specialty wood, and this has got a heavy grain in it. So, okay, so I went way hot for that LPI, and keep in mind now, this is a small image. I mean, you can see how big it is. It's not very big. So you're gonna lose a lot of fine detail when you do one this small. But for now, just for demonstration purposes, I didn't want to be sitting here all night. You can somewhat make out facial features and everything, and it's got some pretty good detail. I went a little hot, and like I said, this is just a little quick throw together. But the resolution, I'm gonna try to get that in there real tight where you can see. And I don't know if you noticed that tall, handsome young man in the back right there, but this is a 1980 something photo, and that little guy right there is me, and there's my dad, my mom, and my bratty little sister. But yeah, I'm gonna try this image. I'm just kind of been kicking it around, working with it a little bit. I just did a few modifications to it, and if I had to run it as hot, it would have turned out a lot better. So, but I'm not gonna do that tonight, but maybe another day, because I'm working on something. I got a little project going with this thing. So, but it turned out pretty well for plywood. My intentions is eventually to put this on cedar. Cedar does a much better job of taking an engraving. It doesn't have these deep grain. Had a little bit of a moment there, but the grain isn't as defined in cedar, so you get a lot better image. Matter of fact, let me see if do I have a piece of cedar already ready? All right, guys, I could not make myself and the Ortur look bad with that last engrave. So let me show you what I got going on here now. If anybody ever tells you or asks you what the best wood to do portraits on or images on is, it is Eastern red cedar. And trust me, guys, I got my own sawmill. This is a piece of a cedar tree that was recovered from an old man's yard. Had a tree service called me and said that it was a retired guy on a fixed income, and the tree had blew over in his yard, and he had called him out there to cut it up, and he didn't have enough money to pay to have it cut up and hauled off. So I worked up a deal with the tree company that I would come and get as much as I could to use on the sawmill, and then what was left, he could, they could get for him, and it wound up like basically costing him a fraction of what it would have in the beginning. I just didn't have a way of getting rid of the brush and stuff, but I got all of the logs down to a very small diameter, which I think this, you can see the white wood on this. I think this was like a piece of 12-inch cedar log that I milled up. The key with images, from my experience, and keep in mind, guys, I bought my D1 10 watt over a year ago, and it took me 3 months to recoup all of my expenses from that machine. And primarily I was doing these around Christmas. One of the big things that folks like is memorial pieces, and cedar. Of course, it's a good colorful wood that everybody likes. It smells good. It has a unique aroma when engraving. It almost smells like a hamster pen caught on fire, but it takes engraving really well. Now, I prefer to try to go with the grain with the engrave, and that's it. It really doesn't matter, but if you do have a line, to me it just looks better that way if you do have a dark grain. But I try to stay in this area of grain where there's no real heavy grain at when I'm engraving. This engrave, I'm running this at 70% output, or 70, hang on, let me tell you correctly. 70 speed at 100% output. I've got the LPI set at 300 because I think with wood as your medium, 300 is about as high as is really necessary because the resolution, so to speak, on wood isn't all that high. So I've got it running at 300 DPI, 100% output, 70 speed, and I'm going to show you the results that I have because, like I said, I didn't want to make myself look bad using that Luan. That is not what I recommend for doing portraits on. Cedar is the way to go if you really want some detail. All right, it's wrapping up, and yes, it's a fast machine, guys. What can I say? But I'm gonna be honest with you. I know this thing is on the higher end of the diode budget, but so far it's impressing me. The resolution on this photo's turned out pretty well, especially since this is the first burn on cedar with this image without any further modifications. So, like I said, I like to tweak them a little bit before I call it done, but this one's turned out pretty well. All right, straight off the laser, guys. There's the detail. Now you can really tell facial features. Like I said, good looking little guy right there. I'm going to take this and I'm going to lightly hit it with a little sandpaper to try to bring out the lights and the dark. All right, there we go, guys. There it is. So I think it turned out pretty well. I'm going to give this guy a good score on images for sure. That little fan's noisy until it cuts off, but there it is right there, guys. All right, one last look. Here's your image, and you can see that pretty well, I believe. But all in all, guys, like I said, do not lift this machine while it is powered on or you will regret it. That sensor, it apparently, I don't know if it doesn't have a reset function or what, but apparently the only way to get it to quit doing that is to power it off and back on. Excuse me. But so far, guys, I'm digging the machine. I like it better now that I've got my the little frame so that it sits in the middle. I'm gonna keep trying this thing out before it shows up in my Etsy store. I will eventually release it to Etsy, but I want to make sure there's not any more adjustments I need to do. I'm going to try to figure out a way to incorporate my interchangeable jig kit with this thing without the problems of that lip. I'm afraid because that lip on the ends is so high, I'm afraid that's just not going to be possible with the way the legs are configured on it, as well as that lip on the edge of that cutting platform. I really don't see where that's going to be possible without causing some major issues. So it may be one of those things you just have to take it. You have to use either the jig to do coasters and whatnot with, or engraving, or put this under it to use for a cutting space. It may be one of those type situations. Or another option that I have is to basically, you really wouldn't need a locking jig as long as you use the straight edge of this laser bed. If you use the straight edge of that laser bed to position it, and you properly positioned it on the corners, then it would serve the same purpose, because using this tool that I have built, it holds that thing in the same place fairly consistently. I mean, there's probably a, you know, 0.5 millimeter of variation, but it would be very, very consistent, a lot more consistent than if you just had it sitting on the table up underneath the machine. So I think that's a working plan, but I'm going to play around with that, try to design something that I could use to align everything before I release anything, because it may be a kit, it may be a package that goes together. But anyway, guys, the links to this machine I will be placing in the description if you're interested. Like I said, I know this guy's on the higher end of the budget when it comes to diode lasers, but so far so good. I'm curious as to if and when there's going to be a 20-watt version of this guy. It is definitely a contender for an enclosure. I still haven't sold myself on that. I'm trying to work through the whole limitation of the height, but the more I think about it and the wideness of this platform, let me break out my measuring tape here and let me explain this to you. Inside the rail to inside the rail on this machine is 20 inches. So a 16-inch cutting board technically would lay between those rails and have 4 inches to play. I could go as far, there's a motor on the stepper motor on this side, kind of protrudes a little bit, and then there's a piece of metal that sticks down on the other side. So you're kinda, I would stay less than 18 inches. I'd stay around 17 inches on a workpiece inside here, if it's a taller workpiece for sure. So 17 inches wide, inside to inside, is very close to what this one is inside to inside, but this one does allow for you to be able to put the material under it more. Now, on the sides here, the sides are fairly high, but then you've got this piece on the gantry that protrudes down that would hit any kind of tall material you had in there. I do have a plan to try, however, to do a elevator inside my enclosure I'm going to basically lift the machine up and then have a platform that goes up and down. I'm working on that. I think I've got all the pieces picked out to be able to put that together and make that work, but it's probably going to be a while because I got a lot of events coming up, and Christmas is right around the corner, and I've got to start turning out some ideas and some things for Christmas. We've got several people wanting me to build things for them for Christmas gifts that I got to work on. So that's probably going to have to wait until after the new year. But anyway, guys, like I said, if you're interested in the machine, you're interested in the platform, links will be in the description down below. As far as the practical setup for it in the way of the platform holder and the jig kit, the Ortur Laser Master 3 jig kit is actually already on my Etsy shop, but this latest creation here that holds that platform in place is not. So there's that, but I'll try to get it out as soon as I can, because I know a few of you probably are already contemplating getting it. So I appreciate you stopping by. I hope this helped you and it was informative. So far, the only complaint, like I said, the low ground clearance on it for my cutting boards is a disadvantage for me. It may not be for you. And the little sensor was getting to be a little annoying, but then I realized that it was just a mistake on my part. And I got this machine just in time, guys, because I had just ordered a 15-foot USB cable so that I could do my reviews and stuff on this table without having to put them in an enclosure. And then I get this machine and don't need the cord. So that was kind of convenient. But anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, give me a like, thumbs up, whatever you can do to support the channel. It's been growing. I appreciate the growth. I've also, if you're in the area or going to be in the area Friday and Saturday, don't forget, everybody, May May's having her open house at her shop down in Clanton. It's not in downtown, but in Clanton, and I will be there, and a few other crafters and folks that do kind of trades like this, make jewelry and stuff like that, will be there as well. And it's probably gonna be a fun time. I've got a lot of ornaments and stuff that I've made for May May. She's gonna have those up there selling them, and they will be signing them and all that. And so it's probably gonna be a fun time. It's gonna be some long days for us that are up there, but I hope if you're in the area or if you wanna stop by and say hey to myself or May May, just feel free to drop in. Like I said, the times and everything should be on May's website or her Facebook page. And if you do show up, I'll see you there. And don't be upset if I put you to work, because people ask questions, and you can ask my man Billy that showed up at the last event with me. I will put you to work talking to people. So thanks for coming, guys. And as always, be safe and have a good night.